Hey, this is me making my video project for Into the Wild. I'm just going to talk about why I think McCandless made his trek into the wild. So first off, um, I think Chris was a really extremely bold person, um, and was just really courageous. And I don't think you have to be insane to do what he did. Just again, really bold, and he just did it because he's courageous. Um, and people say that it could have been that he just wanted to die in the end anyway, that it was a suicide mission, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. And there's a bunch of evidence, within the text of why it isn't. But just one example is the quote. This is his letter to Wayne Westerberg. It says, "Overjoyed upon reaching the Colorado River." Um, and someone who was depressed or was having an awful time doing what he did, wouldn't use the word overjoyed. And the overall connotation through all of his letters to Jan and Wayne were overall in good tone. He didn't seem like he was having a bad time or anything. And so he was having a good time doing what he wanted to do. And I think that Chris, was he thought a lot differently than most people, and most people would agree that he was an introvert, and just had a different way of thinking. And there's also a quote for that, and this is some guy that went to his college, I guess. It says, "I saw Chris at a party after his sophomore year at Emory, and it was obvious he had changed. He seemed very introverted, almost cold. It was hard to get him to open up." So he was definitely an introvert, and definitely thought a lot differently than most people would. This is another quote. It says, "McCandless was thrilled to be on his way north, and he was relieved that he had again evaded the impending threat of human intimacy, of friendship, and all the messy emotional baggage that comes with it." And this just kind of shows how Chris, he wanted to be in isolation. He liked being by himself and thinking by himself, and he liked to think away from more superficial things in society, and just thought that that was poison. Society was poison to him, and that his intent wasn't to go out into the wilderness and kill himself, but just to move away from everything. And he thought, that was the only way, was just to go way out in Alaska by himself. And I also think, Chris saw the bigger picture that most people don't, and he had a bigger appreciation for more primitive lifestyle, I guess you could say. And again, because he was bold and just didn't even care. I mean, he did care, but just because he can, and he would, and he did, he actually goes and does something about it, and makes real progress, and just say he's going to do it. He just goes and does it, and doesn't care. Doesn't care what people think, at least. And there's a quote in the book that says, "So many people live within unhappy circumstances and yet will not take the initiative to change their situation. Very basic core of a man's living spirit is in his passion for adventure. The joy of life comes from our encounters with new experiences, and there is no greater joy than to have an endlessly changing horizon." Which is pretty much, his justification for doing the whole thing, that most people wouldn't do it. They would just sit there and complain, but he's just had enough and just does it. And Chris was also a transcendentalist, for sure. He believed that the true human experience couldn't come from society or all that. He just thought that life the human life should be lived in a more isolated, primitive way, and that was the most to get everything out of life. And yeah, again, he thought that society and civilizations were sources of poison. Another quote that he had was, 2 years he walks the earth, no phone, no pool, no pets, no cigarettes. Ultimate freedom, an extremist, an aesthetic voyage whose home is the road. No longer to be poisoned by civilization, he flees and walks alone upon the land to become lost in the woods. Yeah, that's about it. So that's my video